Konnichiwa. Today we're going to talk about ways of making commands and requests in Japanese. You'll probably know some of these already, but I think we're going to go a little bit deeper to some things you may not have realized. We're going to go from the least commanding and intense towards the most, so we'll start off with one that we all know, which is the te form. Some sources will tell you that the te form on its own is a command or request form. That's only half true. It's the abbreviation of a command or request. If we say chotto matte, wait a little, this is an abbreviation of chotto matte kudasai, wait a little please. And probably because of this, it's the one that's least likely to be offensive, although it's still casual. Now, sometimes you'll hear people saying not chotto matte, but chotto mattete. What's going on here? Essentially what they're saying is, wait a little bit and I'll be back. The implication is that the waiting period will end fairly shortly. And what this actually is a contraction of chotto matte ite. As we know, matte ite means exist in a state of waiting, be waiting in English. So chotto matte te is actually taking this matte ite and putting it into te form so that what you're being asked or instructed to do is exist in a state of waiting. And the implication of this is just exist for a little bit in a state of waiting. And of course this doesn't have to be waiting, it can be anything, but the implication is just do it for a bit, just exist in that state for a short time. If we don't say chotto, and we don't necessarily, there's nothing to indicate a short time, but that is always the implication of telling someone with the te form to exist in a particular state. The other thing to know about the te form, which is used to tell or ask someone to do something, is that, as we know, the equivalent negative adjective of any verb is made by simply attaching the helper adjective nai to the a stem, and the helper adjective nai actually is unusual in that it has two te forms. It has the regular te form, which is formed just like any other te form by attaching te to the ku stem, so that's nakute. But it also has the irregular te form naide, and when attached to a verb, this is only used in two kinds of circumstance. One is when we say do be without doing a. So, hanasanai de aruku means walk without talking. The other is when we're making that te-formed command or request, and again it's short for nai de kudasai. So if we say nakanai de, don't cry, that's using this secondary specialized te form of nai, which is specifically there for making negative commands or requests, as well as for the one other usage that we discussed. And sometimes in anime, you'll hear someone scream when a monster is approaching her, "Konaide! Don't come!" In English, we'd probably say keep away. In Japanese, we'd say konaide. Now, next up in our hierarchy of commands is nasai. Nasai is attached to the I stem of verbs, and when you attach nasai to the I stem of a verb, you make it into a command. So, oki nasai is get up, wake up. Ochitsuki nasai, calm down, settle down. We're attaching nasai to the I stem of ochitsuku, which means calm down or settle down, and turning it into a command. Nasai is the sort of command given by parents to children, teachers to a class, that sort of thing. It's not offensive if it's given by someone who's entitled to give it. So, for example, in the anime Karigurashi no Ariete, Ariete's father says, "Ne nasai." That's the I stem, which of course with ichidan verbs we make by simply removing the ru of neru, sleep or go to bed, plus nasai. Something that can be confusing here is that there is an abbreviation of nasai which can be confused with a different abbreviation, meaning the opposite. And that abbreviation is na. When we attach na to the e stem of a verb, then we're actually abbreviating nasai. So if we say junbi shi na, we're saying junbi shi nasai, get ready, get prepared. Junbi suru, e stem of suru shi, nasai or na. Now that in itself isn't particularly confusing. What can confuse people is that if we say, for example, baka ni suru na, don't make fun of me, of her. Sore o taberu na, don't eat that, could be poison. This means the opposite. We're using na for both the command to do something and a command not to do something. So how do we tell the two apart? Fortunately, it's very easy. If the na is attached to the e stem, then it's an abbreviation of nasai. It always is. If it's not attached to the e stem, but attached to the entire logical clause, as in sore o taberu, na, then it is not an abbreviation of nasai. It's in fact an older negative related to nai. So really, although they can seem confusing at first, and they're probably confusing when you're told by some textbook just to learn which particular forms they stick to, it's not really confusing in practice. One only attaches where nasai would attach to the e stem, and that's the one that means nasai. The other one tops off a complete logical clause with a negativizing na. And now we come to the real command form, meirei-kei, in Japanese. And this is formed very simply by using the bare e stem of a godan verb, or in the case of an ichidan verb, we take off the ru as always and replace it with the ro. So you might hear people say in an anime, damare, that is the verb damaru, to be quiet, to be silent, turned into a command, be quiet. And this is really pretty forceful. It's stronger and potentially more offensive than urusai, and I made a video on urusai if you want to follow that up. It's not inherently offensive. If someone really has the right to be giving orders, they may use it, and people who talk rough may use it among friends or to enemies. You may hear it a lot in shonen anime, where people do tend to talk rough. It can also express urgency in a few cases. One case that you'll often hear is when a character is in serious trouble and calls out, "Tasukete kure," which is like "Tasukete kudasai," but turning it into a real order, a command. Now obviously someone in deep trouble isn't trying to insult or offend anyone who might help him. So what this kure is doing in this case is expressing the urgency of the situation. Yet even here I'd have to say that I've only ever heard male characters use this tasukete kure. Female characters, even in the direst emergency, will tend to content themselves with tasukete, and this shows how delicate the real meirei-kei command form actually is. Kure is really the only irregular meirei-kei apart from the two regular irregulars, which are suru and kuru. So kureru, to give down to me, becomes kure. And as you see, it's a particularly touchy kind of word to use because you're asking for a favor, but you're demanding it. You're commanding someone to do a favor down to you. Now, for completeness, I'd say that there are two other ways of commanding that are mostly used for other things, but can be used as command forms as well. One is the noda, nda ending, which is put on the end of a complete logical clause. And I've made a video about this noda, nda ending, and I'll put a link to that over my head and in the information section below. As I explain in the video, it has a wide range of uses, but one of those uses is turning something into a command. So if we say, shukudai o suru no da, we're saying, literally, it's that you do your homework. This would be somewhat like the English, you're going to do your homework. it's a command. Also, yoni, which as an ender would tend to be more associated with prayers and petitions and requests, can also form a command. And the main reason I mention these is because if you come across them in your immersion and you see something that usually is doing something else looking like a command, noda or yoni, then don't be puzzled by it. In these cases, it is a command. If you have other things that are puzzling you in your immersion, please let me know in the comments below. And if you have other questions or comments, of course, please put them in the comments below as well. I'd like to thank my Gold Kokeshi patrons, my producer angels who make these videos possible, and everyone who supports me in every way. My dear patrons who make all this possible, not just the gold ones, but all of them, and all of you who subscribe to the channel, like the videos, and make comments. Thank you, all of you. We're forging a new path together. And, of course, I'd like to thank you right now for attending this lesson. これからもよろしくお願いします。Class dismissed.